Hey, everybody. Welcome to my call to podcast, call to an interview with my friends. Man, I have been blessed to have just some incredible relationships in my career. And they're friends first, and they're not good at what they do for a living. They're exceptional. And that's who I like to surround myself with. And today, man, I have a great opportunity to sit down with one of my really good friends who is an expert residential real estate agent. And for those of you struggling with getting a real estate agent to call you back, getting a real estate agent to help you understand why you have to make an offer a certain way, getting a real estate agent to help you address your needs, well, we're going to help you solve for that today. Let me tell you a quick story. I am here today with my really good friend, Aaron Villarreal. Aaron, thanks for kind of taking the hot seat.
Of course.
And just let me throw some darts at you and let's see how you do them. And I'm grateful that you're here, and I can't wait to talk about so many things real estate related.
Yes, sir. Me too.
Sadly, I'm going to explain why I'm wearing the Laker jersey for you today.
We'll get to that.
We'll get to that. Yeah. Matter of fact, let's just jump into that.
Let's do it.
You're a crazy Laker fan.
I sure am.
Tell me where did it come from? Is it a basketball thing? It's a specific Laker thing? Anytime someone's super passionate about something, I want to know where it came from.
Yeah, absolutely. By all means. And thanks for having me, Chris. Glad to be on. So, as a Lakers fan, I've been a fan since I was single digits years old. So my family, both my grandpas pretty religiously watched, and growing up, I was just around it.
Yeah.
But even my dad would, especially when we were competitive, Kobe and Shaq. That's
Sure.
kind of when I started really paying attention. Kobe's my favorite athlete of all time.
Okay.
I think he's one of the most inspirational models for business and life as well. And so, he's always been a huge motivator towards the work ethic that I put in my business and with my family too.
I love that. Because I know you're a crazy Laker fan, even though I hate the Lakers, I'm donning the jersey on your behalf today, just because
I should have worn mine. I would have totally
well,
done it.
one of the things about this, I make jokes. This podcast with 3.6 listeners is this entire time is about me sharing my friends.
Yeah.
We don't talk mortgages.
Sure.
We talk about my friends and what's important to them in their lives and what they do for a career.
Absolutely.
And why they're so passionate about it. And I figure, shoot, I got to represent my friends, even though I hate the Lakers, just to put the jersey on. But let's talk about something for a second that you just talked about.
Sure.
I don't do a lot on Facebook. I really use Facebook to stay connected with my fraternity brothers.
Yeah.
And for people with friends. And, I got a grandkid and stuff like that. But the one thing I do enjoy about Facebook is I get 3 sets of reels on a regular basis because, once you watch it, you get them.
Sure.
Anything marriage related that I can remind my wife I'm better than she thinks I am, and the jokes and the funny stuff.
Sure.
I like some of the motivational stuff. Maybe it's a Morgan Freeman. Maybe it's a Steve Harvey, ironically.
Sure.
So I'm starting to enjoy that, especially as I get a little bit older. But my favorites are the sports ones, and it's anything really Kobe, Tom Brady, and Michael Jordan related.
Yeah.
And I love what you said about Kobe, because there's a couple things I've noticed about Kobe. Anyone who's an athlete is in awe of what he did.
Yeah.
Not just he played on a broken foot, But I'll tell you the thing I love about Kobe. Unfortunately, with his passing, we lost him too soon.
Yeah.
But I think people are more aware now of his business acumen and his determination.
I think so too.
More so than when he was winning championships and his will to win. Would you agree with that?
I think so. Yeah. There was definitely some off-season stuff that happened that distracted from what I think was a brilliance that he had that wasn't as well known on his personal life and his business acumen. He certainly demonstrated that, even winning, I think it was an Oscar, if I'm not mistaken, for Dear Basketball.
The Muse or something like that.
That was amazing.
Yeah.
And just something that I feel like when you watch something like that, you can really see where that human being, how they became the person they became, and how driven and committed he was to his craft. And that's the thing that inspires me the most, besides being a great dad too.
Yeah.
Because clearly he modeled that in a big way.
Well, the thing I love about the reels right now that are so activated is anything Tom Brady, anything Michael Jordan, anything Kobe Bryant. Not one time do you hear them talk about championships, and not one time do you hear them talk about winning. They talk about the failures and the defeats, and Kobe losing game 5, and he gets on the bus and he comes back to the gym and he shoots 1,000 free throws or something like that. And I think sometimes for me, sports is a huge part of my life. I know it is for you. And it's not just for the entertainment factor.
Mm-hmm.
It's for watching a quarterback get a massive injury and be out for a year, like Alex Smith, and figure out how to still move on. It's watching the guy get an Achilles tear and me thinking, like, if I had torn my Achilles, I'd buckle down in the fetal position because I'm a wimp.
Right.
But I think for me, sports, entertainment, and brings so much more into the life perspective. And I feel like Kobe's being honored in that way because we're getting to see how hard the work really was.
Yeah.
And doesn't that really correlate in anything we do in our life?
Oh, I think it very much does.
Right? Like anytime I know you got 2 beautiful sons.
Yes, sir.
I had 3 kids. They're all adults now. I can look back in time and think, God, I'm such a failure. Like I screwed that one up so bad. But now as young adults, as my kids are, it's really cool to look back and see, well, at that time, I thought I did something wrong and I had to work a little bit harder to get better at it. Mm-hmm. I didn't think I could see the victory in it till much later.
Makes sense.
Right? Because you're raising 2 boys.
Yep. 7 and 9 years old.
In Orange County.
Yep.
In a digital world with all of these things. Let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah.
What's
a lot to work out or look for.
What's the biggest fear for the boys from a social perspective coming up in the next 5 to 7 years? Like what's the biggest concern for a dad of 2 young boys?
Exposure, and I mean, let's be honest. We have the World Wide Web. We've had that for many, many years.
Yeah.
But I feel like the difference between, I'm 37 now, the way I grew up and the access I had to information or the internet or communication or all the millions of different places you can chat with people that you might not know, that's the big thing, And I do believe cybersecurity is a big thing that is a priority, not even just with our government or what have you, but the truth is it's still the Wild West out there, and it just takes a little bit of going off the beaten path to discover things that you wouldn't want your kids, sons or daughters, to be exposed to.
Yeah.
Or people, obviously, that can be persuasive or dangerous.
I have a 7-year-old granddaughter.
Yeah.
And it's a hard balance because, I don't think any parent just wants to give their kids stuff because someone else has it, right? Yeah. But there is the challenge of there's more 7 and 9-year-olds with cell phones than I would have ever imagined. Same. And I know not every parent wants to give their kid a cell phone. And there's just that balancing act. And I'm not trying to make it about cell phones, right?
No.
But my wife and I were just saying the other day, like, I've got this beautiful granddaughter. We have her a couple times a week. It's great to have her.
Yeah.
But when she goes home, I think about my daughter-in-law, and I'm like, I'm glad I don't have to try and raise a kid today, that my kids are adults now.
Yeah.
And I'm sure parents want to do their best, but it's a lot harder than it was when I was raising my kids because phones and stuff like just got barely introduced. My kids got phones when they were like, I don't know, 14 or something like that.
That was similar
15.
to me, and we had Snake on a flip phone, and there's nothing really dangerous about that, you know? But the truth is now, like, you have to be a certain level of techie, for instance, to know how to put the right blockades in place,
Sure.
So thankfully my wife is even better than me at that, and we've put things in place where they have an iPad now as of last year and things like that. But even still, there's ways that they find previews to certain movies that they shouldn't be watching or what have you. And it's like, whoa, hang on.
Yeah.
So I think the big thing that we prioritize as parents, Chris, is transparency and knowing that there's always an open path of communication for my sons to approach us about anything. It doesn't matter how awkward or uncomfortable the subject or topic may be.
Yeah. Got to be available for it.
Yeah. That's proven to be very effective, and grateful that my parents kind of taught and instilled that in me growing up.
Yeah.
And so knowing that I can approach my parents with anything that is on my mind really has eased that burden and the questioning that inevitably comes when you don't know what they might have been exposed to in any given day or situation.
Yeah. I love that. I'm gonna compliment you for a second.
Yeah.
I've been in this mortgage business 33 years now, and I've worked with hundreds of real estate agents, maybe 1,000. I don't even know. I've been a part of so many transactions, and I've got some great relationships. And then I've worked with some real estate agents. I worked with them one time, and I'm like, I don't ever want to work with them again. And who knows? Maybe they feel that way about me.
Yeah.
I want to affirm something to you, because when we got introduced to each other 6 years ago, you were a successful realtor. I'm gonna say you were a successful real estate agent, but hear me out for a second.
Sure.
But our first interaction wasn't you had a transaction for a buyer. You wanted to get to know me.
Exactly.
Our first interaction was you wanted to tell me who you were. And if I'm being transparent, up until that point, I've been in the business 27 years. I'd never had a real estate agent who I got introduced to who wanted to tell me who they were. And the reason why I think that was so valuable, now that we've worked on a number of transactions together, now I understand why. Because you give a shit at a different level.
Yeah.
And you're so intimate with your clients, and you're so detailed, and I'm going to uncover that in just a minute. But I want to affirm to you that first conversation that had nothing to do with monetizing a transaction showed me who you were, because you know this, real estate agents don't have the best reputation out there. Neither do mortgage lenders, by the way.
Yep.
But to me, like, you're a prototypical real estate agent that isn't in it for the commission, and I've witnessed that. So if I can affirm one thing to you, don't change anything in the way that you're doing it, because the approach that you took with me, candidly, I hung up and I'm like, this is really weird, this dude. No, I mean it. I'm like, I don't even know who this dude is. And he wants to tell me how he works and how he thinks and how he operates. Now, after doing, I think, 16 or 17 transactions together in the last 6 years, what I have found is you're so detailed in who you do business with, because you want to make sure your customer gets the same experience.
I do.
So let me dig right in.
Yeah, go for it.
You are super passionate about the details. And tell me why the details matter so much, because the details for you don't matter in real estate and in your marriage to Skylar and being a dad. You are a details guy, and details matter to you no matter what vertical of your life you're in. Why are the details so important to you in this manner?
It's a good question. I believe that the customer experience is so crucial. And what I mean by that is, you already hit the nail on the head here, Chris. A lot of agents and mortgage advisors and what have you, professionals, don't give us a good reputation to begin with in this industry.
Sure.
So my approach starting out, and when I remember that call vividly, because I just felt like we hit it off. You know, I felt like
agreed.
I can relate with how you carry yourself, your professionalism, the experience you had. And I felt like I can trust my clients with Chris Chudacoff. And there were many reasons for that. But I wanted to make sure the experience they had working with someone just as crucial as the person handling their finances and their monies would feel as safe and trustworthy as they do with me when we've built that rapport and trust. Because this is a giant decision, as you well know, for most people. You know, obviously there are people that have bought and sold numerous times and it's not as scary as it is, you know, but for those that have never done it, it's a big decision, especially somewhere like Orange County, where our price point's well over $1 million. Yeah. And that's a big call. And so you kind of hit the nail on the head as well with Kobe, you know, like his attention to detail and tenacity for doing things the right way and finishing whatever task he's working at, whether he popped his Achilles and still shot those 2 free throws, which that was really cool seeing Kyrie Irving just do that just a few days ago.
Almost as like
to see it happen.
But almost like a tribute as well.
Oh, it absolutely
Because he and Kobe were extremely close, right? Yeah. And so what a great tribute to Kobe, by the way. Quick segue. Yeah.
For sure. And so that attention to detail and care for what he does as his profession influenced how I do it for me. And I actually thought it was a shoo-in, really, to approach my business this way, because I had already, in a short amount of time, experienced a lot of unprofessionalism and a lot of people that didn't care that much. And in 2020, that was even more obvious, I thought, because you could put a house on the market and within an hour have a great deal and be able to go and close it, you know? And I thought, that doesn't take much skill. That doesn't take much expertise. I want to change the perception of real estate professionals and the expectations for what we bring to the table, so that we can prove our value better than we used to.
Yeah.
You know, anyone can get a license and plug a house into the MLS and maybe take some phone pictures, you know.
Yeah.
That's not being a real estate agent. I think it's taking it to another level of service and expertise where the client knows that they're in good hands and they can trust you. And at the end, they can refer you.
Yeah. I was hoping you were going to bring Kobe back into it.
Yeah.
I've worked with some great real estate agents. What I love that you brought about Kobe back into it is the details do matter.
They do.
And in a real estate transaction, even maybe a move-up buyer, not necessarily just a first-time home. And I'll talk about first-time home buyers in a second, because I'm telling you, you crush it with first-time home buyers. But not every agent wants to work with first-time home buyers. I'm glad you brought Kobe into it, because the details, especially when you're buying a home, are a huge deal, because your clients are expecting you to prepare them for what's coming. They expect you to be proactive, and you cannot be prepared and proactive if you don't understand the details.
Yeah.
And so I want to talk about the majority of our clients have been first-time home buyers. And I know that you know how I feel about first-time home buyers. A lot of real estate agents don't want to work with first-time home buyers for a number of reasons. It's more work.
Yeah.
It's more hand-holding. It's more educating. It's a lot more for call it the same compensation.
Sure.
Right?
Absolutely.
Why are you passionate about first-time home buyers? But before you answer, we all want, if I'm a real estate agent, we all want someone to call and say, hey, I have a $3 million listing. It's worth $3.4 million, but I'm going to sell it for $3 million. Would you like to sell it? And I'll pay you full commission.
There you go.
Easy.
Yeah.
Which happens never.
No, it doesn't.
What's the passion on first-time home buyers? And why do you think it's such an important piece of your business? And then I'll talk about your higher line clients as well.
Sure.
But you're really good at first-time home buyers. Most real estate agents are not. Is it the details? Is it the servant's heart? What is it?
You're already, I mean, right there, Chris. It really is. I see anyone that wants to bring me on and hire me for their representation as deserving of basically preemptively letting them know what to expect, or at least a nice little overview of it.
Sure.
Because when it boils down to it, speaking about other agents again, and I'm not trying to put anyone down, but the truth is you and I have both seen a lot of people that don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it gives a bad experience to the consumer. And then they go to the Zillows or the Redfins or the other competitors, and they're like, I don't even need a professional to represent me. Why do I need that? It's not necessary.
Yeah.
And that's the big push that I see as I've been building my business is the truth is the customer experience, if it's done right, they will want to work with you again. They'll call you again, even if you haven't been the greatest at keeping in touch with them, because that happens, let's be honest.
Sure.
Right?
Slips through the cracks, something happens.
It just happens, you know, or maybe they don't respond as much unless there's something they need you for. And that's okay too.
Yeah, sure.
It's about keeping in touch and letting them know that person, you have done a good enough job to deserve to keep in touch with them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's an honor.
It totally is.
Yeah.
And I try to approach every relationship from that perspective, because I've seen it prove value, not just to me personally, but to my business, obviously.
Yeah.
So in terms of first-time home buyers, I think, yes, you're very much right that it does take more hand-holding and more work, but you build a different level of trust when you help them do such a big thing.
You do.
All on your own because of your expertise.
Because they really become, I love first-time home buyers.
Yeah.
I also want someone to call and say, I need $3 million and you can take 90 days and I'll make it. Never happens.
Yeah.
I know that one of the reasons we both enjoy first-time home buyers, they're kind of like sponges, right? And we get this opportunity to gloss over it and do a job and close a transaction, or we get an opportunity to lock in lifetime clients. And I think sometimes people miss out on that opportunity. I think sometimes real estate agents and mortgage professionals, I think they're so quick to look at the monetization of the transaction itself, just the one. And I always say, instead of looking at the long play instead of the short play, because for me, I invest 4 times more in a first-time home buyer than let's say a past client or a move-up buyer, just because of the education process. But I'll tell you what happens. and I know you feel the same way.
Yeah.
Those people feel like your family. Now, I'm much older than you, and I do try and come across to my first-time home buyers as like the uncle they didn't really want or something like that.
Sure.
But I know that one of the reasons you invest so much time with first-time home buyers, they really do become lifelong clients. And I think real estate agents miss out on that opportunity because they're not looking at it from the long play. They're just looking at how much time I'm investing today.
Right.
Would you agree with that?
I do agree with that. What's that immediate ROI?
Yeah.
Which, don't get me wrong, we need to get compensated.
Well, yeah, we got to pay. We got kids to feed.
And that's by the other thing too. Not necessarily the exact same topic, but I don't even like the word commission, if I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
I prefer to look at it as my income. What have I earned to get that paycheck? You know?
Yeah.
And coming at it from a mentality of, hey, I don't want to assume that you've had a good experience because a lot of people haven't in this industry. And so I always take the mentality of, let me just make sure that you know what to expect so that I'm not going to make a guarantee that things won't get rocky. They obviously do.
Yeah.
I always say real estate is done by people, and people are not flawless, obviously.
That's right.
You can't expect a transaction in any given situation to go exactly the way you're hoping.
Sure.
But you got to do your best to smooth out the bumps so that they kind of know
because the bumps are
what's happening.
coming.
Yeah, they're
no
coming.
matter what.
And as long as they know it's coming, it's just like getting in the car. You might hit a few, cracks in the asphalt or whatever it may be. But as long as they know it's coming, hopefully they'll trust that you're going to get them to their destination, which is the closing table, right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's where they want to be, and they want to make those memories. That's the other thing, too. Thinking about it from less of a transactional perspective and more of a, let me get you to your place of respite and your place of relaxation and rejuvenation.
Yeah.
That's what I think about the most when I'm helping, especially someone that's a first-time home buyer.
Yeah. I love that. And I want to transition into just something very quickly.
Yeah.
You know the stats, right? The majority of real estate agents in the last 3 years have not had success.
Yeah.
There's less than 5% that are transacting more than 3 a year. And yes, we know there's a ton of people who have a license who don't really work, but
Sure.
I have a lot of good friends that are real estate agents that are not transacting. Mm-hmm. You have found a way to not just be busy, but to be excelling and not just succeeding, accelerating.
Sure.
And so everyone's going to say like, the business is really hard. The business is really slow. That's why I'm doing less business. Not only are you not saying that, you're also not experiencing that. Your business is growing. Like, how do you even qualify that? Like, is it the Kobe Bryant details? Is it I'm relentless? Is it I give a shit about my first-time home buyers? Is it I care about my sports entertainment clients, which we'll talk about in a second?
Yeah.
How are you continuing to have success when the market's pulling back and people are doing no transactions yet Aaron Villarreal continues to get more deals? What is that? And I know you're not going to boast. How is that happening? Like, how are you doing that in a really, really, really tough real estate market?
Great question, Chris. I'd say the first thing is it starts with consistency. And again, Kobe, right? Like after a hard loss, he'd go and shoot those free throws or whatever it took to make him outperform everyone else, It has not been easy building a business since 2019 is when I officially started out.
Yeah.
But I know that the quality of work I'm putting out, people are noticing that, and they want to have their own experience working with me. And so I just keep putting that out there as consistently as possible. Do I get discouraged? Absolutely.
Yeah.
But very grateful to God that last year was my best year yet.
Yeah. By the way, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, go.
It's my podcast. I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
2024, right? Less than 4% of real estate agents in the state of California closed more than one transaction, and it was your best year ever. Yeah. Consistency.
Yeah.
Keeping at it, right? All the days you lost, you came up the next day to win.
Right.
Fair?
Yeah. Fair.
Yeah. I love that you had your best year in 2024. No, I mean it.
Yeah.
You're on social a lot, and I love that. I love that you're on social to talk about a listing appointment. I love that you're on social to talk about a buyer closing. I love that sometimes you're on social just to say, hey, I can't wait to go crush it today.
Yeah.
You have a servant's heart. You come across with people in your community always optimistic and always filled with joy. I know your faith has a lot to do with that because we share mutual faith.
Certainly.
What do you do on the days when you find out maybe the buyer did go with, and they made a massive mistake and went with something that rhymes with pillow that starts with a Z, even though they made that mistake?
Sure.
What do you do when you go on the listing appointment and they chose their neighbor's, gardener's, sister's, best friend's husband that doesn't even sell real estate?
Yeah.
How do you rally around that and wake up the next day? Because you and our relationship together, I know you've had some tough seasons. You always have joy. You always are optimistic about what's coming. Is it just your faith? Is it the faith Kobe thing? How do you stay joyful every single day, regardless of what's going on?
It's certainly based in the foundation of my faith, for sure.
Yeah.
As a Christian, as a believer, and we've talked at length about this. It's something, I think we talked about it on that very first call, actually.
Yeah, we did.
And the reason for that is not that that's a prerequisite by any means. I will work with anyone from any faith as long as we can have mutual respect for each other.
Of course, yeah.
Which I think was the point of that initial conversation, And,
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it made that much of an impact on you, Chris. And it's pretty cool to hear.
It did.
So thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
But in terms of getting back up and out there, I've worked, my first job was at Stater Brothers, putting grocery carts, filling up ice and on the 4th of July by the pallet load.
Yeah.
And knowing that customer service starts as simple as something like that, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you bring good quality customer service consistently, like an Apple or a Nordstrom or whatever it may be, your customers will come to expect that. In-N-Out's that way too. They will come to expect that level of professionalism. I was just at In-N-Out with my wife yesterday, picking up some lunch. And the worker, after taking our order, noticed a piece of trash floating around and went and go pick that up and put it in the trash can.
Yeah.
I just told my wife, I said, that's the level of customer service that I want my business to always have the reputation of.
Yeah, for sure.
And in previous lives, previous work, even back, believe it or not, I think I told you this, before I sold real estate, I was a wholesale battery salesman, selling batteries by the truckload to the oil and gas fields and solar and all these things. But what I realized is my customer service maybe won't be able to be replicated by everybody I work with, right? But being an independent business owner and entrepreneur, being a real estate agent, and seeing myself as the CEO of my own company, which I am theoretically.
Yeah, absolutely.
But having that mentality allows me to think, okay, what can make my customer have the best experience consistently?
Yeah.
And not have some manager that wears their emotions on their sleeve burn a bridge that I've built over 2 years.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so I don't want my clients to ever feel that. Does it mean that my clients are never 100% satisfied? No.
Yeah.
I mean, that sometimes happens.
Sure.
It's like I said, real estate is messy because human beings are messy.
Yeah.
But I do my best to make it the most smooth and comfortable, happy, joyful experience as I can with that positivity and the consistency.
Well, it's easy doing transactions with you because your clients are so prepared.
Yeah.
They know what to expect, and the communication and the collaboration is great. I want to segue for a minute about the sports and entertainment side because you love first-time home buyers. You're also exceptional because you have a little bit of a unique skill set that a lot of real estate agents don't with some of the sports and entertainment stuff. So first of all, it's got to be great helping clients in the sports and entertainment field, right? Just because
it's fun.
You love sports.
Sure.
A little bit of a different customer experience.
Certainly
right?
is. If you might hear an argument against that, but I've actually found the more I've done that and worked with clientele of high profiles, that they deserve the service just as much as the first-time home buyer that has a price point that's not accessible where I live.
Oh, I love that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And what I'm getting at is a lot of times the aura of someone that has any level of fame, influencer on Instagram or whatever it may be, they haven't had a good experience with someone in our industry either.
Sure.
And so I found if I consistently come from a position of not not necessarily education like I'm a teacher telling you what to do, but giving you a heads up. Okay, this is about what we should expect it to look like when we're out there submitting offers or what have you, or doing our inspections and we realize that 90% of homes in California have termite problems or whatever it is. Like, I want them to know that hopefully ahead of time. And if I've done a good enough job, they will know that ahead of time. You can attest to that.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
Sports and entertainment wise, I think, unfortunately, what inevitably happens is those clientele, they sometimes get the short end of the stick because people might be distracted from their aura.
Okay.
But they're really just people like you and I
still another person. Right.
You know what I mean?
They're just not on the big screen, or they're not playing WNBA or something along those lines, right? They're still a human being who puts on their shoes and has coffee in the morning and has a property tax bill to pay and normal stuff, right?
Exactly. And kids to feed and take care of, and dogs, you know, and all those things. And so what I've discovered is if you treat them with that same level of respect and try not to the best of your ability, to get distracted by whoever they may be.
By the fame side of it.
That there's a huge need for agents to not be distracted by that, and to leverage their customer service in a way that builds forever clients out of those clientele just as much as any other.
Yeah. I absolutely love that. And I forgot the book that I read this in, but it can reference back to your consistency comment. You know, you reference In-N-Out. In-N-Out does the same thing every single day, and they don't veer from it.
Yep.
And I love the Nordstrom's Macy's analogy. I use it all the time because I already know if I go to Nordstrom's, I'm going to spend $130 on that shirt.
Right.
But they are going to blow me away with customer service.
Yep.
I also know if I go to Macy's, I'm getting a $130 shirt for $50 with all my wife's coupons.
Right.
But it's going to take me 30 minutes to go to the luggage aisle to check out. Right. What I love about what you just said is that the first time home buyer needs my attention and my commitment and my details, and so does my entertainment client that's playing professional sports.
Yeah.
They're the same. And I could see sometimes where we might get a little bit confused by the aura of that person. And I'm glad that you kind of you dumbed it down. You made it simple. They're still a person. They're still under a contract. They still got someone. Did we get the house? Are we getting the blinds? What do you mean I can't order the couch yet?
Right.
Just as much as the first-time home buyers,
Exactly.
right? They all need that. So I love that. I want to talk about a couple predictions.
Sure.
Right? Predictions are nothing other than opinions. What's the biggest challenge facing a seller in 2025?
Expectations that their home is going to be performing like they did even in the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
Things have changed in a big way, especially since August.
A little more inventory.
Yeah. A little more inventory. Days on market have crept up.
Days on market have crept up.
And my perspective on that, just generally, we're talking opinions, is that's not a bad thing. I think what, unfortunately, a lot of sellers in the last 5 years have gotten used to is being waited on hand and foot just because they brought up an inventory, a property to the market.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case, though. I think there needs to be a balance between buyers and sellers, and this includes interest rates too, where our fiduciary is to help bring two people together to get a deal done.
Sure.
And an agreement in place that's real and not wishy-washy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
So in terms of basically what the challenges are now in today's market is you have to not expect that your house is the best house ever.
Yeah.
And that's really hard for a lot of sellers. You
of
know
course,
that.
Because it's emotional, right?
It is.
They're not looking at it from the
especially when you found that house and it was the best house on the market and you saw 20 others and you made it yours, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think you just recently did this, Chris.
Yeah.
And the truth is it might take a little more legwork and effort. You might have to paint those walls and make sure there's no holes visible, or have it staged, or redo the carpets or flooring, you know, to make it more presentable and appealing, because it might take a little longer to find that right buyer. Some niches are still moving crazy fast.
Sure.
But it very much depends on that hyper locality, which I try to use that nitty gritty determination of getting into the details.
Yeah.
When it comes to that too, so that I know, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that's what I'm expecting based on the days on market we're seeing
Yeah.
is that your house is going to move pretty quick. Or, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, this is a very niche property that buyer, it might take months to find that buyer.
Yeah.
So lean on your professional, and your professional, if they're good at what they do, should be able to tell you how we're going to find that buyer, how we're going to procure it, and how we're going to package your property so that the public sees it in a very positive light. And that word of mouth happens.
Yeah. And I think that's a big part of it that some of the sellers I think are struggling with today, right? Mm-hmm. First and foremost is it's not the pandemic anymore. No. Homes are not selling in one day with 17 offers. And for, I think, some sellers, the thought of having to invest a little bit of money to put a little bit more lipstick on it just to get the price you want, you're not spending more money to get more money. Because as you know, I like that we're on March 5th, 2025, we're in a healthier market, a little more of an equilibrium, right? It's still probably a little bit of a seller's market, but at least there's a little bit more of a balance, right? Buyers have a little bit better opportunity. I think some of the sellers are having a hard time with, I may have to put $8,000 or $10,000 into it just to market the home to sell it faster compared to the one that's not.
Right.
I'm not getting $8,000 or $10,000 in cash back. Last thing on predictions. What's the toughest thing for a buyer that they're going to experience in 2025?
Affordability here is still, and has been for many, many years, an issue,
And it's not getting easier, it seems like.
It's not. The cost of living in general in the United States is already a challenge for the average person.
Yeah.
And, I relate to that. I live here too, and I've been in your shoes, and I know what it's like putting yourself out there when you're placing an offer on a house that you're really hoping is going to work out.
Yeah.
But the affordability is a challenge, and, not to be a downer on that, but I don't think that's changing. So the way I try to approach it now, and this is something I feel like I've actually absorbed from you over the years, Chris, is let's kind of reverse engineer it to make sure you're comfortable with whatever that monthly is.
Yeah.
And then build off of that.
It's so important.
It is, because if you think about it from the opposite way, looking at it reverse engineer wise, if you're building it based off that, it's not going to change. So you don't have to worry about your rent anymore because that's consistently going up. Not to mention the rental market is still very competitive because most of the people in the millennial generation, that's 65 million people, by the way, the largest in our country's history.
That's right.
Most people, if you can't afford, then obviously you're going to keep renting. But that rent keeps going up because it can. The demand is there.
Right. Because they're not buying.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you want to stop that cycle, it takes a lot of work to put away a down payment, to make sure your credit looks good and all that stuff. But if you stay diligent, you'll get there. The average buyer in today's market is 38 years old. Yeah. That's a year older.
Some 32% of buyers in 2024 were millennials.
Yeah.
I mean, they continue to do that. I'll tell you one of the things you do really well, and we've talked about this. When you are working with your home buyers, whether you're first time or your move-ups, you talk to them about tax deductions.
Yeah.
And then when they come to me, of course, I can kind of get deep into that. One of the things you do really well is I love that the first thing that came to your mind for difficulty for buyer in 2025, affordability.
Yeah.
If it's an affirmation of your shtick, don't change it.
Yeah.
Because we're having a hard time getting buyers to see what they can afford and where they're going to stretch. When you introduce, as a real estate professional, tax deductions, you get them thinking differently because the majority of real estate agents are not talking about tax deductions.
Yeah.
And when you plant that seed to them, and then any good lender hopefully is presenting a loan showing how their tax deductions, with the disclaimer, check with your CPA for fun.
Of course, always.
But I'm telling you, I'm going to affirm to you, when you talk about that, you not only separate yourself from your competition, because most of them are not, number one, you're getting your client to think differently. And number two, it really segues into building your team of who your lender might be, or at least has them go back to their lender and say, hey, when you look at my loan structure, tell me what my tax deductions are going to be. And you're really giving yourself a leg up. So I want to affirm that.
Thanks, Chris.
I want to bring this full circle.
Sure.
You've got this beautiful wife, Skylar. You got these two boys. What does the next 10 years look like in the sense of, I've been married, 30 years. My kids, my kids are grown. How do you carve out the time? Real estate agents work a lot. and you're a good one, especially the good ones, right? I know you don't wake up at 3 a.m. for a text, hopefully. What do the next few years look like in the terms of balance? How do you find the time to be a great dad, be a great husband, be a great real estate professional, be a great teammate, because you've got this great team, even though you're kind of the CEO of your business. Yeah. I know you're involved in your community. Like, how do you find the balance of time to be great in those areas? Because I know what's most important to you, and I love that your career is important, but God's placed you to be a husband and a father and a community person. Yeah. How do you find that balance to be great in those areas without sleep deprivation?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a very legitimate question, Chris. Thank you for the encouragement, by the way. Yeah. Always, see, this is why we work well
It's
together.
A process, man.
But, we just celebrated our 12th wedding anniversary on Sunday.
Nice. And, congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And that's something to celebrate, especially when you look at a lot of people can't make it that far or it just doesn't work out in marriage, in 2025.
Yeah.
I think it's even more challenging now than it's ever been in a lot of ways. But it comes down to, you kind of mentioned it, priorities. Who comes first, right? For me, it's my faith in God and my wife, then my sons, and then my business. And if I keep that organization as best as I can, it doesn't mean I don't mess that up.
Sure.
God blesses that.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about prosperity religion or anything like that. I'm talking about if you keep your priorities straight, God will honor that effort. And that's been true in my life.
Yeah.
And that's before I met my wife and had kids and all that.
Yeah.
If you keep that structure intact, I think God will consistently bless and honor the work that you're putting in, whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's also just listening to him, listening to how he's leading you in your life from whatever direction he might be taking you. For instance, when we moved to Colorado, that wasn't on my radar before I met Skylar and before that battery job I was working.
Yeah.
But I knew that if God was opening the door to that he would bless that effort, and that as long as the intention and the mind and heart were right,
Yeah.
So keeping that straight and keeping that balance is not easy. And as a point of encouragement, if you just stick to those priorities, it's possible. It doesn't mean you won't come to points where you maybe just let it bleed too much into your personal time, but put those boundaries in place.
Yeah.
Have working hours, because we know lots of agents will pick up their phone all hours of the day and night.
Yeah.
And it's not that I won't pick it up, but my clients know I have a family.
Yeah.
And they know
like
that
I'm not picking up the
boundaries-
phone at 6:15 because my kids and my wife get 22 minutes of my time to have dinner before they got to go.
Before they got to go to bed and all that, because they come first. And so they're going to have that time. It might not be as much as maybe I would want as a good dad, quote unquote, or husband. But I try my hardest to keep that balance in place. And also, I think it's important, take some time off sometimes.
Yeah.
Because
you have to.
Honestly, you can probably attest to this. I've seen this most times I've ever taken any sort of a vacation. That's when my phone starts ringing the most.
I know.
And so preemptively doing everything you can to have in place to where things are automated and clients feel like they have access to you when you're available is very important, and making sure that customer service comes through, even when you might need to take that time away.
Yeah.
People will respect it, I think, if you're transparent and honest
I agree,
about it.
as long as you communicate it.
Yep.
I love having conversations about faith. I have a lot of conversations with people of different faith as well. And I have a number of my friends that don't share my faith. Mm-hmm. And I make some comments that a lot of my friends have heard. Some of my best friends are not Christians. I've got one family I'm friends with that are strong Mormons. A very dear friend of mine named Sar Swartzen, who's been on this podcast, is Jewish.
Yeah.
And I also know a lot of Christians that I don't want to be with either.
Yeah.
I always say I don't discriminate against anybody who's kind. Mm-hmm. I don't care what people's faith and belief is. I have mine, you have yours.
Yeah.
To bring that full circle, I've had some people say, gosh, Chris, I'm not a Christian, but I hear you talk about you have to put God first before you do anything else. And why is that? And I love that you said that, because for me, if I feel like I'm in the right relationship with someone who's guiding me, I'm going to be a better father. I'm going to be a better husband. I'm going to be better in my community. So I love that you said that. I'm glad, even though I know you well, I'm glad we got to do this. What I want you to do right now is I want you to look in that camera.
Absolutely.
Tell people before I wrap up how they can connect with you directly if they have any questions.
Certainly. Thank you, Chris. And
yeah,
I need to come on more often. This is very encouraging.
Yeah, I love it. I love it.
But
next time, bring Skylar and I'll tell her all the great things that you do, because as a wife, she's probably got the few things that she'll say, well, he didn't take the trash out or something like that. Yeah.
For sure. No, on that note, it's been a pleasure and a privilege. I hope we can do it again sometime. But getting to me, you can reach me on my website, aaronvillarreal.com, or on Instagram, LinkedIn. Like Chris mentioned, I am all over on social media. I kind of see that as my digital resume. So find me on Instagram, aaronvillarrealestate.estate. And or my website, like I said, or give me a call. I answer my phone, so I'd love to talk. Yeah.
There's a lot of great residential real estate agents out there. Anyone listening probably knows someone, has someone, knows someone. Not every real estate agent I work with comes on this show. There's only a few. And I work with some great real estate agents, but there's only a few that I know, like, and trust, that I would actually have my own real estate done and or have one of my clients be represented properly. And I can tell you firsthand, Aaron Villarreal is as good as it gets. He gives a shit at a different level for his clients, and he is an expert, and he's knowledgeable, and he cares. And I've watched him talk people out of doing something because that was the right thing to tell them. And he doesn't look at the commission as a monetization. You heard him. He's got to make a living to pay for his kids, but he cares at a deep level. And if you have any interest to connect with a new real estate agent, please reach out to Aaron anytime. And for the 3.9 listeners now who paid attention today, thanks for coming on our show. Aaron, thanks for hanging out. It was great.
Thank you,
Chris.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, everybody.